Hello everybody, I'm Logan Plant, the founder and CEO here at Beavertown. We thought we'd just get you a little video together, a little tasting video, a little introduction to the beers that we brew here up in Tottenham and soon to be in Enfield. A little introduction about myself, from the West Midlands originally, huge brewing heritage up there, loads of amazing breweries, amazing pubs, amazing people, really got me into beer. And I think by the age of 20, I had a vision of perhaps starting a brewery and becoming a brewer. I was so fascinated with not only the beer and the pub, but also the process behind it. And that was really where the journey started. I then went to university, studied, and then was lucky enough to go traveling for a year. And then, as you do, you come back, start a rock and roll band or two. That went on for about 8 or 9 years. But what it did do, it took me around the world. It taught me about creativity, expression, having belief in yourself and the craft of what you're doing. 8 or 9 years down the road, I think I'm touching about the age of 30, 31. And I just thought, you know what? I've always had this dream and I really want to go for it. And so my wife and I, we made the decision together. I left the band. We put everything we had together. We put it in one pot. I started homebrewing at home, and it took, I don't know, about 18 months to kind of get a business plan, get some cash together, and eventually find a site where we were to start Beavertown. And that was in an amazing restaurant that we started called Duke's Brew and Q. And the whole concept was about American barbecue and great craft beer, American-inspired craft beer. So the two kind of harmonious elements come together was to create, I guess, the most kind of experiential, stimulating of environments. And that was about taste, flavor, music, vibes, touch, feel. So you'd leave Duke's after drinking plenty of Beavertown and eating some amazing smoked meat, and you go, wow, that's just changed my life. And anyway, that's kind of where Beavertown started. We were very small then. I think I was brewing once a week. It was about 800 litres a batch, which if you think about it, that's about, I don't know, 1,200 of these cans, or as it that we were then in bottles. And then we moved and craft beer started to develop. That was maybe 2012 when we started. And then over the next year or two, we forged a kind of relevance in this movement of craft beer. It became something, more and more breweries started to pop up. I think we were maybe the 20th brewery in London at the time in February 2012. Now you think there's over 100, maybe 110, 120. So things have really moved fast. And for Beavertown, it's always been about, you know, pushing what we can do as brewers, pushing what we can do as people, and pushing, you know, what we think we can kind of mold for the drinker. And that's where we come to a little introduction to our beers, which I'll bring us onto now. Gamma Ray, an American pale ale. What is an American pale ale? Well, it's basically a pale ale with loads of American hops. That was the theory. We first brewed it back in 2012. I think Beavertown had been going for maybe 6 months. And we hadn't actually brewed a pale ale by that time. Nick Dwyer, our creative director, had just started working at Duke's as a waiter. And he was kind of doodling and doing his thing, you know, in between me brewing and his shifts. And my assistant then at the time, James Rylance, who's an amazing brewer, he came up with the idea of like, okay, well, let's do this IPA, this pale ale. So we came up with a recipe. Nick was there doodling away and he was like, oh yeah, I've got this amazing idea about spacemen and lasers and stuff. And we could call it Gamma Ray because we thought Gamma Rays were green and the beer would be so full of hops that it was no doubt going to be green. The theory behind Gamma Ray is that it's 5.4%. So it's kind of just in that nice kind of range where it's still sessionable, but it's about packing it with as many American hops as we could. And at the time, 8 years ago, it was really tough to get hold of hops, you know, good quality hops from America. But I did my best and I managed to get some Amarillo, some Citra, some Calypso. We added a bit of Mosaic and we got a bit of Bravo and Columbus in there. But the main drivers behind this beer are Citra, Amarillo, and Calypso. The whole concept was about, you know, just giving this beer this little kind of, little bit of malt character. So it's probably one of the maltier beers that we do. So a little tiny bit of crystal malt, but it's packed with that kind of juicy, tropical, mango, kind of grapefruit flavor and aroma. Let me just crack one. I love Gamma Ray. It's one of my babies. I think it's one of our babies. It's become an icon. I think for British craft beer, not only is the imagery that Nick Dwyer created iconic, but I think at that time, in 2012, when we were coming through and just starting out, that kind of dynamic of creating hop-forward, punchy, pungent beers was really just starting to kick off. And I think Gamma Ray it's still one of the forebearers and one of the kind of leaders, I think, in what an American pale ale can be. So 5.4%, big tropical kind of mango, grapefruit. Yeah, super sessionable, deliciously tasty. Neck Oil Session IPA. Only one word describes this: sledgehammer. Everywhere we put it on the bar, when it goes in there, it basically smashes it up. It's become our hero beer. It's the beer that we brew most of. It's 4.3%. It's real light, real crisp, passion fruit, pineapple, citrus, a little bit of kind of fleshy orange fruits in there as well. The whole kind of principle of Neck Oil the name particularly comes from my great granddad, actually, from back in the Midlands. He used to say, I'm going down the pub for a pint of Neck Oil, because it was his favorite beer. And he just wanted to lubricate his neck after a hard week. And I just thought, you know, when I was thinking about starting a beer, I thought, if we could ever name a beer, it's got to be Neck Oil. And this is exactly what Neck Oil does. As I say, it's 4.3%, super crisp, super easy drinking. The hops that we use in there, a little bit of Centennial, Simcoe, Amarillo. We got some big hitters from Australia. We got some Galaxy, some Big Secret. And then the lead hop on this is Mosaic, which gives it that kind of bigger kind of tropical, ripe kind of characteristic, which backs up that kind of fleshy pineapple thing going on. Let me give it a try. It's delicious. The principle of this beer initially was it started out as a cask beer. And I was trying to recreate this cask beer that I was brought up on back in the Midlands. Could never get there. So one day I just thought, bugger it. Let's start again. Let's chuck in some really lovely hops that we can get from Australia and America, and let's create this other kind of thing, this other phenomenon. And the whole thing with it was to kind of create a stepping stone beer. So kind of a beer that, you know, introduces people into the world of Beavertown. The whole principle was like, yeah, let's make it real nice and light, real nice and crisp, but let's give it enough kind of hop character and enough on the nose to really draw you in and build up that kind of drinking experience. So over the years, we've kind of molded and twisted. And as I say, to the point now where Neck Oil is an absolute beast. I'm so proud of it as a beer and the journey that it's come from being that kind of traditional cask ale I used to brew back in Duke's and serve over the bar, to suddenly being this behemoth, again, that kind of represents UK craft as a sessionable, beautiful 4.3 session IPA. Cheers. Lupuloid IPA. What a monster. What is a Lupuloid? Lupuloid is a crazy idea that one day I was in America. I've been drinking a load of amazing IPAs. It was 2016, I think. We haven't really got like a house IPA in the range. I had this crazy idea, you know, when you think about humanoids, which are these huge kind of robotic humans, the Latin meaning of hop is humulus lupulus. And I thought, okay, humanoid, lupulus, lupus, hop, how can we bounce around that? And then I just came up with Lupuloid. It's a massive, massive hop monster, as you can see. What is it doing? It's battling. I don't know if you can see this little guy down here. That's one of the Gamma Ray men. They're having a battle. The whole thing is about this kind of transition between planets and different settings. So these guys are the Lupuloids. Lupuloid, 6.7%, pretty hefty. But again, the concept was, how can we make an IPA, which, let's be honest, is over 6%. It's in between like 6, 7.5%. How can we make an IPA at that ABV have that kind of sessionability, that easy drinking, crisp, light, a real nice foundation for the hops to fly on? And I think that, to me, defines what a great IPA is. So keep the malt simple and just let the hops do all the talking. Citra, Mosaic, Equinox. Beasts, absolute beasts from the US. So Citra gives you all that kind of big, ripe kind of papaya, mango. Similarly with Mosaic, you get a bit more kind of blueberry, bubblegum. Again, those big fleshy fruits. And then the Equinox gives you this nice little spiky thing, which is, I guess, almost, it gives that kind of dankness, but there's also a little kind of green pepper thing in there, which kind of really spikes nicely through those bigger, fleshy characteristics from the Citra mosaic. So we use a little bit of oats, which kind of leaves some of the starches, some of the proteins in there, which kind of builds out that mouthfeel. So not only are you getting that kind of juicy tropical thing, you're getting this really nice kind of soft, pillowy kind of mouthfeel. Again, very dry, so real crisp, nice and dry, very drinkable, but again, just lets the hops do the flying. It's a hell of a beast. Let's give it a try. Absolute banger, and at 6.7%, it's a beautiful thing, a beautiful beer. Cheers. Bloody hell, Blood Orange IPA. What is a Blood Orange IPA? Well, it's kind of in the name. It's an IPA that we use blood oranges within. Why do we do it? I love blood oranges. Many years ago, I think probably in 2013, I was on a trip in the US. I met some amazing people, a beer trip, met some amazing brewers, and one of the brewers had used blood oranges in this beer, and he was somewhere snowy, and he just showed me all these blood oranges in the snow. And I thought, wow, you know, that kind of orange character, but also that kind of slightly kind of tart, sour on the nose, and that rich kind of color. I could just imagine that going in a real nice IPA. So back in 2013, I think it was 2014, we brewed the first version of Bloody Hell. At that point, it was 7.2%, so it was a real kind of hefty IPA. We brewed it seasonally. So as soon as the blood oranges came into season, I think it was in like the February, so February, March, April, it would be the Bloody Hell season. And it went really well. It went really well. People loved this beer. And I just thought, you know, I was always umming and ahhing and thinking like, how could we bring it into our core range? How do we get the blood oranges and, you know, keep them and have the kind of, the facilities to maintain producing it all year round. Anyway, we got to the point where we could, and we got to the point where I thought, yes, okay, let's bring it into the core range. Only problem is we've already got Lupuloid up at 6.7%. So I thought, all right, let's see if we can bring Bloody Hell down into a kind of, again, a more kind of sessionable 5.5%. So we did, and the guys, the brew team, have done an amazing job. The basis of all Beavertown beers is let's build the foundation from a nice, easy, kind of clean malt bill. We use a lot of super extra pale malt, a little bit of wheat, a little bit of carob hills, which gives it just a little bit of body in there. And then this is all about the hops and obviously the blood orange. So when you think about those kind of tangerine characteristics, that blood orange, mandarin, all those kind of nice juicy oranges, we wanted to try and get some hops that would really work alongside them and not contradict. So again, Citra, great, gives that kind of full body, juicy kind of character. Simcoe with a nice little bit of piney, resiny kind of character, a bit of pithiness if you like. And then Amarillo, which to me is a great hop, again, from the west coast of North America. It's got those kind of tangerine, citrusy, mandarin kind of characters, I believe. So yeah, putting them all together. And then we use a load of blood orange. It's called comminute. So it's like the whole of the pulp, less the zest, squashed together. And during fermentation, we lump a load of that in. So you get those kind of characters coming through the beer. It's that kind of dance between the orange and the hops. So it's a real kind of clinical, really particular, specific kind of place you've got to get it. It's not like drinking orange juice. That was never the concept. It's not about kind of using over the top orange character. It's about that delicate dance between the hops, which we love, and obviously that character of the blood orange. Let's give it a go. I love it. I love it. And the reason why I love it is because you get that slight kind of orange character. And again, you know, any beer for me is about balance. You know, I get it. Like, we've done big beers, we've done crazy beers, we've infused all sorts of stuff. But really, when I want to sit down and I want to have a great session, it's about balance. And to me, we've got it bang on here. You get the character and the flavor from the hops, but then you also get that kind of woof, that kind of bump behind from the blood orange. I think it's absolutely banging. I think we've done a great job. Yeah, 5.5%, super crisp, super light, little bit of orange, beautiful hop monster, bloody hell, love it. Nanobot, our new baby. And what a baby it's turned out to be, a right bonny baby. This beer has been kind of in the mind thoughts for quite a while within the brewery. It's a style that we love. It's a super session IPA. So you got Oil Session IPA, Nanobot Super Session IPA. What does super session mean? Super session IPA? Basically, it means you can session on it even more. Why is that? Because it's 2.8%. Sounds low? It's very, very low. The objective was this, was to create and grab as much flavor as we could from a low ABV beer. You know, we've been thinking over the years, you know, about, you know, we built it on sessionability, on taste, on flavor. How do we gain all that? How do we gain all that? We've done these big juicy IPAs and these crazy stouts and these barrel-aged beers, sour beers, but how? How do we create the lowest ABV and still maintain that flavor character of an IPA and that aroma of an IPA? After many brews and many trials, we believe Nanobot is the answer. Again, simple. With this one, we wanted to keep it, again, super light, super crisp. And then the thing is with low ABV beer, perhaps sometimes you can lose the body. So we really wanted to try and work on the body. And how do we do that? We use oats, we use flake wheat, we use golden naked oats, and we use another variety called Golden Promise, which is a pale malt. All those hops together really build a nice mouthfeel. The oats and the wheat, they kind of give you these kind of proteins that kind of bond together in these starches that create a kind of thicker mouthfeel, which is something that you can lose in lower ABV beers, but we think we've got it in Nanobot. And then it was about, again, that balance with the hops. How do we get that hop character into a super session IPA? It takes a lot of kind of crafting, a lot of experimentation. And I guess that's where the name came from, Nanobot. You know, these tiny robots that are very precise in what they're doing, how they're doing it. And here we are, Super Session IPA. Let's give it a go. Beautiful. Delicate. Again, hops that kind of actually get that pretty new. We're using Simcoe, that is like a kind of IPA classic from America. And then we're using a new hop called Sabro that was only developed a few years ago. And it kind of gives you those kind of peachy, fleshy kind of stone fruit characters, kind of pina colada. So a little bit of pineapple coming through, a little bit of creaminess. And then Simcoe gives you those kind of maybe a bit tangerine, bit of pine. And then we've also got a little bit of a German hop in there called Hallertau Cascade, which is basically the American hop Cascade that was grown in Germany. But again, it gives you those kind of delicate floral notes. So those three together, that kind of peachy fleshiness, you got that piney kind of tangerine thing going, and that kind of pineapple-y thing works a treat. The whole principle of this beer was also built on choice. You know, the thing with Beavertown is, yeah, we, again, as I said, we love to make big, extraordinary beers, but you know, what we as drinkers, and me particularly as a drinker, and I think all of us here as brewers, we love the sessionability. We love to be able to sit down with your mates, with your family, with your colleagues, and just have a great time, drink lots of beer, be happy, be merry. And I guess that's where, you know, sitting around outside after brewing or on the weekends at tap room or, you know, down the pub with your mate, drinking a beer like this means you can, you know, you don't have to compromise. You can still think, oh yeah, I can have 1, 2, 3, 4 pints of this and I'm still fine. You know, your well-being is intact. Mentally, you're fine. Yeah, the principle of it, I think, is the future. I think the whole kind of low and no environment is going to grow. I think how we consume those kind of beers for those particular moments is going to grow. So yeah, this is our take. Super Session IPA Nanobot. Cheers.